You awaken in a cold sweat. Your heart races and your breath quickens. It's 3 a.m. and you're not alone. Something lurks in the corner of the room, and it's darker than the night.
You're deep in the woods, enjoying a family camping trip. Marshmallows roast and laughs are shared until something screams from behind the ridge. It's neither human nor animal, but something in between. You can't see it, but it sees you.
You're driving down a dark, lonely road, singing along to your favorite song, when something dressed in white crosses your path. You swerve to an immediate stop and check your rearview mirror, but nothing's there.
The people are real, and the stories are legend.
The problem is that legends are often riddled in myth.
We uncover the truth. Tune in to Paratruth Radio every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on newlanternmedia.com and anywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome to Paranormal Heart, a place where people can talk about their paranormal experiences. With your host, Kat Ward.
Welcome back, folks, to Paranormal Heart. I'm your host, Kat Ward. You can find new episodes on the second and last Sunday of each month on Podbean, YouTube, New Lantern Media, and any place you find fine podcasts. If you have had paranormal encounters you'd like to share, you can either be a guest on the show, or you can submit them in writing, and I'll be happy to narrate your story. Just drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. This episode's shout-out goes to my beautiful listeners in Romania. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the show, and much love to you all. In episode 58, my special guest, Rob Gutro, is an author, paranormal investigator, and medium with Inspired Ghost Tracking of Maryland. He's best known as a pet medium, although he communicates with people as well who have passed. He has written many books, including Pets and the Afterlife 3 Dog Spirit Signs. As a scientist, he also provides some scientific explanation about how energy is the baseline for the afterlife and the medium that entities use to communicate. Rob has helped many grieving people who have lost their beloved fur family members, including yours truly. As you all know, we recently lost our beloved Black Lab Molly, and Rob was able to help us by communicating with her, and Rob will always forever be grateful for that and for helping us recognize the signs when she's around us now. Without further ado, I introduce to you Rob Gutro. Hello, Rob. Welcome to Paranormal Heart.
Hi, Kat. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Thank you, and I'm so happy that you're here because, as you know, I listened to you on Dave Scott's show, Spaced Out Radio. Absolutely love the episode. I've always wanted to have someone on who is not only a paranormal investigator, but someone who can also communicate with animals. So when I heard you, I was ecstatic. It's like, yes, I must have him on. So then I messaged Dave, and he gave me your contact info. So thank you for being here.
Well, I appreciate it. And certainly connecting with pets is a very special gift. And it began with a tragic start, but it manifested itself to the point where I've been able to help thousands of people around the world, and that's really been a tremendous gift.
Oh, that's amazing. anyone who's ever had a pet know that they're just like having a child. They mean so much to us. There's a lot of people who don't seem to understand the connection that we can have with animals, and they just don't see them as having feelings or being intelligent. And, you do have a connection. I've had so many pets in my life, and every personality was different.
Yeah, they absolutely are. They're the same as humans. And so my background is actually a scientist. I'm a meteorologist. And because I'm a scientist in my daytime job, I incorporate science in my books to explain how it all works and how animals are able to communicate. So I use the science of behavior, and I also I include neuroscience too, because there were studies using neuroscience that proved that dogs and cats have the same exact feelings and emotions that humans do. All animals really do.
That was another passion of mine. So when I found out that you were a meteorologist, I thought, yes, another passion of mine. I've always loved meteorology, and some say I should have been a meteorologist, but it never became a reality for me. But it definitely is an interest.
Well, I always tell people from that perspective, weather is the one thing that affects everybody every day, even if you never leave the house, because the change in pressure systems will affect the way that we feel. So if there's a low pressure system outside, we feel the high pressure within our body forcing on every joint we have. That's why we have pain whenever there's low pressure, because high flows to low. And when we feel high pressure outside and sunny outside, we feel good. So you don't have to leave the house.
No, I have a storm glass here, and we actually don't really need it because a lot of times my husband will look at the storm glass and say, "Are you picking up on this?" Because I get weather headaches and weather migraines. So I have found, I think I had asked you this in an email, I've found a correlation between people who are sensitive and who also have weather migraines, and that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, it really is. Energy, if we're sensitive, energy can affect us in many different ways. Fortunately, it doesn't give me migraines. Otherwise, I would make my profession even twice as hard, I think.
Yeah. Do you, for being a meteorologist, do you also go out and, storm chasers, or do you strictly look at the data?
I'm a data guy. I like to be safe.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those risk takers. I'm too old to be risk taking. So, yeah. I'll stay in the shadows. Thank you very much.
There was a time I wanted to be a storm chaser until I had kids. Then it's like, yeah, I'm not really interested in that anymore. We're in the Ottawa Valley here in Ontario, and quite a few years ago, they were talking about potential for rain and thunder showers, but they didn't predict any tornadoes or anything. And I had an appointment in Ottawa, which is 2 hours away. Left the kids home. My husband and I went, and I had the worst migraine ever. And I even went to my neighbor across the street and said, kids are staying home. If we have a tornado, can they come over? And she's looking at me going, of course. I'm like, okay, I'll touch base later. So when we got to Ottawa, tried to call the kids, and the line was busy. So I went on Facebook, saw all these photos of overturned transport trucks and downed trees, and I looked at my husband and said, holy crap, I think there was a tornado. And there was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Actually, it's the same destruction as a tornado, but I think they classified it as a downburst.
Straight line. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But when we came back to town, the kids were safe, but when we came back to town, it looked like a war zone. So now I know what kind of a headache or what kind of pressure I'm going to feel when a tornado is coming. And like I said, they didn't even anticipate any tornadoes or anything, and it just happened. But my head knew.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. So now whenever I have weather migraines, the family always asks me, well, is it a tornado headache or is it a regular headache? It's like, no, we're just going to have regular thunder showers.
You are a human barometer.
That's, yeah. So how long have you been doing the paranormal, and what got you interested in it?
So I've actively been doing the paranormal for about 11 years, since 2010, right after I published my first book. But my first experience actually came when I was a teenager. And over the course of time, I really didn't pay attention to it. Not until 2005, when a puppy of mine passed away. He was killed by a car when his leash opened. And he reawakened everything. He actually blew the doors off the paranormal for me, because he helped prove to me all of the different ways that pets can communicate from the other side. So then I started paying attention. I started making notes. I started writing everything down. I used to keep a journal, a diary. So that made it easier for me to go back and actually put a book together.
It's such a tragic way to have things like that awaken. But in another way, it's also a blessing, because I imagine you've helped so many people with their losses as well.
Yeah, so it really made me think about how we all have a purpose in life, and sometimes our lives are short for a reason, even though as tragic as that is. So I know that my dog Buzz, that's his name, that passed, although he had a very short life, it was meant to be short so that his life would serve as a way to help bring comfort to countless other people. So that was his purpose here.
Are you still connected with him now? Do you still communicate with him?
Oh, very much. Yes. Yeah. I do find that, time really doesn't matter when it comes to communicating with spirits on the other side.
I would have migraines, he would always come and lay down next to me and purr next to my head, and it would help. That's incredible. What fascinates me as well is when dogs can sense someone has a disease like cancer or something. I'm not quite sure how they do it, if it's a smell or that they're picking up on, or whatever it is. But do you find that animals have come through to you from the other side to say that someone is sick?
They've alluded to that on a rare occasion, but for the most part, they want to focus on connecting to the pet parent. So they won't. It's less of a psychic reading kind of thing, and more of a bonding assurance that they're still there. But I actually just read a book about the sense of smell, and dogs have like 300 million sensory receptors for smell, and we have 5 million. So that's why we can't smell much of anything in comparison. But yes, so they were talking about also the smelling of different diseases, including cancer and so forth. And there's actually research going on right now about using dogs to detect COVID.
Yes, I read about that. That's amazing. I hope that they can use pets to be able to do that instead of having that little swab test that they're doing right now. It would be a little less evasive, I think. A little more comfortable.
Yeah, I'd rather see a dog than a swab, to be honest with you.
Right. So how can you explain to someone that, how can I put this in words? So you said there's signs that pets are trying to communicate with their owners. What signs should people be aware of or to look for?
Well, gosh, so pets will often communicate the same way that they did when they were alive. So we need to look for things that they used to do when they were with us. They may make noises on the floor. You may hear their nails. You may hear a bark or a meow. What's interesting about the noise that they make, usually it sounds like it's coming from another room. So pay attention to that. What it means is it just means it takes so much energy for them that even though they may be like standing next to you, they're not.
Yeah.
At least sound wise. So you may see a visible sign. You may actually see them in full color, but that takes a lot of energy to do that. You may see them as a shadow out of the corner of your eye. They may, other ways that they communicate with you is they may lead you to another pet that looks like them. There's a whole variety of ways. They may show you, they may keep showing numbers to you that mean something. You may go to a certain place and hear their name mentioned when it's a total stranger talking about something or someone else. Mm-hmm. But whenever that happens, know that your pet made it happen, that you were there at that very moment in that very spot to hear that very name, because there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to spirit. So
true. When you mention about numbers, are you referring to sometimes when you look at a clock and it's 1:11 or it's 2:22? Is that signs from not necessarily a loved one, but it could be one of your fur babies on the other side? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm referring to. So I'm not really well versed in numerology, but I do know 111 is like a new life, and that 111 is typical of spirit to share. When I do readings from pets, they will sometimes share numbers with me, and that's been really fascinating in itself. I just did a reading for my friend Christina Corsetti, who runs Haunted Salem here in the U.S., and her dog passed, and she one of the things her dog gave me was the number 935. And sometimes I tell people it could be a date, could be a time, could be any number of things, like a dog tag number, anything. Mm-hmm. But she wrote me back and she said 9:35 was exactly the time my dog passed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. In my book Pets in the Afterlife 3, there's another instance which is fascinating to me, that dogs work with human spirits on the other side too. And in this particular case, there's a dog named Blake. His dad wrote me in July of one year and wanted to get signs from Blake. And so Blake gave me a number of different signs, and he shared the number 512, and he kept saying 512, 512, 512. And I thought, okay, it's either a time or a date or something. I don't know what it is. So I sent that in the email reading that I do, because I do readings by emails. And David replied and he said, I don't know what that means, but I'll keep it in the back of my mind, get back to you. And he wrote me back in January of the next year, and he said, you may not remember me. Blake was the dog you read. 512 was the number he kept giving. I had no idea what it meant. Long story short, he said, I am a physician, and I recently saw a patient in my office who had a collapsed lung. And I realized the code was 512, the medical code. He said, my dog passed from a collapsed lung.
Oh, wow.
So there's a highly, intensely personal way that this dog was able to convince to his dad that he was talking to me.
That's amazing.
Yes, it shocks me. It really does. But pets can do so many things from the other side.
I've always wondered if they did. And from the past few years, I've been hearing more and more people like yourself relaying messages to their their I don't want to say owners, you know, their moms and dads.
I call them pet parents.
Pet parents, yes.
Yeah. So they learn the many ways that they can communicate. And that way they can look for the signs themselves, and they can get that comfort themselves without having to go to a medium. And that was my purpose of writing the books.
I'm going to have to start looking for some signs, because I've had a few cats and a dog that have crossed over, and some cats and my current dog now that are getting up there in years.
So we lost, when I was finishing this book, we lost 2 of our 4 dogs. One was a dachshund who was just over 16 years old, and he passed in May of 2020. And the other was our Weimaraner, and she was 1 month shy of turning 16, and she passed in October. And these two have been with my husband and I since we met each other, and before we met each other. And they were our kids. It really is like losing teenagers. For the folks listening, there's actually a psychological aspect to this, and I've read a number of psychological studies, and I have a good friend who is a medical psychologist who actually helped with a chapter in this book about grief. So, if you've lost a pet and you are in intense grief, please know that it's perfectly normal. The reason is we bring our pets up just like we bring up our children. I tell people that we take them to school, we teach them how to socialize, we teach them language, we teach them how to, go to the bathroom, we take them to the doctor, they know routine, they learn feeding time, we exercise them, they play together, all of the same things you do with human children. And I always say that the only difference is that they don't grow up and marry someone you hate and move away. Plus, they don't live as long, sadly. Yeah. But, if they did live as long as human children, they would outlive us. And then we would be terribly worried about them. So, it's that. So, psychologically speaking, in terms of grief, and one of the chapters that I have in this book is about how to cope with grief and ways to deal, work your way through it. Is because we look at them as children. As humans, we're brought up to think that we will never outlive our children. So there's a double-edged sword there, and that's what makes it harder. I have to tell you, Kat, that I have actually spoken to or emailed with several people who told me they were suicidal because of the loss of their pet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, I'm not a therapist by any means. I can only share messages. But for those people who get that far, number one, please call suicide prevention hotlines. Number two, please contact a therapist. And number three, know that your pet does not want you to harm yourself in any way. They want you to live a full life. And in fact, your pet wants you to maybe adopt another pet and give that other unfortunate pet the love that you gave to them. So that's kind of my public service message from your pet on the other side.
Wow, I didn't figure that there were so many people that would be that touched when their pet passes away. I've been I've taken days off after having to put a pet down. I would call work and say, look, I have to put one of my pets down today and I'm not coming to work. And I may not be there tomorrow as well. And
Sure.
Sometimes they look at me as if to say, no, you need to come to work. And it's like, no, I need to grieve a little bit. I will be there. I don't need a week off or anything like that. I just need a couple of days. A lot of people don't understand that, but I just can't imagine being suicidal. Like I said before, pets just touch us in so many incredible ways.
Well, I think that the fact that they can give us unconditional love, mm-hmm. and something we really can't get from another human, is probably the reason why people get much more in depth of grief because of that loss, because they'll never be able to experience that again unless they adopt another pet.
Pets don't seem to be judgmental. They love us because they love us, for who we are. And a lot of times I've come across people who didn't feel they were accepted by other people, but yet their pets accepted them. It didn't matter what they did or what they said. There's just, they love them, and that was enough for them.
Yeah, there's absolutely no strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
They love us unconditionally. And we could learn a lot from that, I think.
For sure. I always say that I try to listen to animals for how they react to other people around me. If they don't like them, then there's a reason why. Or I had the dog that I have now, Molly. We were living in Alberta, and she was trying to get my attention. And I've learned a long time ago, listen to your pets. And it was pouring rain outside, and we had a little bit of flooding in the basement, and I had no idea. We just moved in about a week before, so we had all our boxes there. So it would have been destroyed. So the kids and I moved everything. Husband was out, and she let me know that, hey, you need to come see this. So
Wow.
Always listen to your pets.
Yeah, she was doing her job.
Yes,
That's awesome.
she was. Yeah.
And that brings up another aspect too about pets in the afterlife too, is that even after they're physically gone, they continue to do their job. So they will often check the house at night. So that's why usually when people go to sleep who have lost pets, they may actually report hearing like nails on the floor or some rustling noises in the house. And there's no explanation. And the explanation is your pet is actually just watching over you, protecting the house and doing the rounds to make sure you're okay before you go to sleep. So they still do their job.
That's amazing. We did an investigation once where we took a photo in the one of hundreds of photos during that investigation, and in the stairway there was a cat. You could see the cat. I'll send you the photo. And when we showed the client, she says, "Oh my, that's my cat that passed a few months prior."
Wow.
And she said the reason why she contacted us is because, especially at night when she go to bed, she felt something at the end of the bed by her feet. Come to find out, it was her cat, because the cat used to jump up when she went to bed and curl up by her feet. So she was relieved that it wasn't anything evil or demonic, it's just your cat. Your cat's still with you. And she was so relieved.
And they really do the same things in spirit that they did in life. So I will often hear from cat parents that they'll actually feel little treads of feet walking across the end of their bed, or their cat or dog will feel like a pressuring against their legs after they passed. So yeah, it's quite common.
Sometimes we feel, as I told you earlier, I have 3 cats, and at least 2 of them like to sleep with us. And sometimes you swear one of them just jumped on the bed because you can feel it, and you look to see which one it was, and there's no one there. There's no animal. So then I know that it was one of our pets from the past. I don't know which one, but I would just smile. And so would my husband say, yeah, it's one of our past pets. I don't know which one, but I kind of wish I had the ability to be able to tell which one it was.
It could be both.
Could be.
They all do come around. So, and that's one thing. That's another thing that we can talk about too. Is that as a scientist, I really read up about the different physiology that dogs and cats have, and how that actually impacts their ability to sense an earthbound ghost or a spirit who has crossed over. And I have learned that dogs and cats have different cones and rods in their eyes, and the cones and rods enable them to see motion. So, as paranormal investigators, we use like high-speed cameras and so forth to try and pick up an image of a spirit or a ghost moving very fast. They don't need that. They can actually see them head on because they see that faster movement. They also, of course, have better hearing than we do. If you blow a dog whistle, we can't hear it,
Yep.
but they can. They can hear it at different frequencies, and when you're on your paranormal investigations, you use a digital recorder to try and pick up those different frequencies, and it registers sometimes on the recorder. And although we can't hear anything, but they can hear it. So that said, if your listeners have a pet and the pet is staring at a certain part of the house, they may have a visitor in spirit. It doesn't mean an earthbound ghost, so your house isn't haunted, but you may have a visitor of a loved one in spirit who's decided to drop in and say hello. And please note that when that happens, note the date and note the time, because you may be able to link it back to whoever that is.
I never thought to look at that, the date and time. One of my cats in particular seems to be a little more sensitive to things like that. She'll be staring at things, and the first thing you think of is, well, maybe she sees a bug or something, But
Sure.
oh no, she'll follow things, and her eyes get big, and she's just she never freaks out or anything, so I know it's nothing bad. But I've always wanted to be able to have enough smarts to be able to develop a pair of glasses or something to see in the same spectrum that cats see. I really wish I was that smart, but no.
Well, that'd be pretty cool if we could do that.
Oh, that would be amazing.
So since you came into you encountered a spirit cat, did you ever take a dog on a paranormal investigation?
No. Excuse me. No, haven't. That would be interesting.
So we did. So my husband and I took our dog Dolly, who's a Weimaraner, the one that just passed, years ago on a paranormal investigation. And I wrote about that in my Pets in the Afterlife 1 book. There was a family that contacted the group that I belonged to, Inspired Ghost Tracking of Maryland, and they said that their dog had passed 6 months before, and they were hearing things downstairs, wondered if their dog could have been coming back to visit. They also had a ghost problem too. They had a couple of different things going on there. So in order to figure out the dog, we decided for the first time we would take our dog Dolly on the investigation. And this is how perceptive dogs are with spirit. We didn't know exactly where the house was in a cul-de-sac where this house was situated. We knew the number, but we couldn't see the number from the street. Actually, the number was all the way on the house, which was set far back, down long driveways. Anyway, we got I remember getting out of the truck and put Dolly on the leash, and she pulled me 2 houses down, and she was so strong pulling me. She pulled me all the way down a driveway to the front door, and she sat. And I thought, I hope this is the right house, because it looked kind of stupid. Turned out to be it was the right house. The manager of the paranormal group came up, and she said, how did you know the number? Because you can't see the number. And I said, I didn't. Dolly obviously was following somebody. And long story short, after we did a short walk around in the first floor of this house, I let Dolly go. I took her off leash with the owner's permission, the husband's permission, and I said, okay, go ahead and show me. Well, she ran upstairs, and we hadn't gone upstairs before. She ran all the way upstairs, went to the first bedroom on the right-hand side, and sat staring at the bed. And we all ran up the stairs after her, and I said to the dad, I said, does this make any sense to you? And he says, yes, because our dog would run in from the outside and run upstairs, go into that room and sit, because he was bonded to my son.
Oh, wow.
So she was chasing the dog in spirit.
Yeah. That's amazing.
That's a pretty cool story. Yeah.
It is.
So she solved the mystery of one of the things in the house. The other one was different. We actually took her out afterward, because when the mother came home, long story short, she had an attachment of a burn victim who died in the hospital she worked at came with her, and we had to pass her over. But that's in one of my case files of Inspired Ghost Tracking book. That was pretty crazy.
That's amazing. We had one case that they had been pushed down some stairs, and their little, I think, 2-year-old girl would get knocked over. Balls from the toys would be moving around by themselves. Come to find out, I put two and two together, and I said, when you got knocked down, could you tell me where you felt it? And it was right around the same level as a dog. You know, when a dog goes down the stairs next to you, sometimes they bump into you. And come to find out, it was there was a fire in that building, I don't remember how many years ago, and the woman and her dog perished in the fire, and the dog was still there and was playing with the little girl, playing with the balls, you know. They were convinced that it was something demonic because they were being pushed down the stairs. A little girl was being pushed, you know, knocked over, but she would be giggling. So it's like, okay.
Yeah, you won't giggle with a demonic thing.
Exactly. Unless it's nervous laughter. But no, so we found out, no, it was actually a dog that was in your house. So that's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool.
We probably have a lot more cases that the client probably, well, obviously they wouldn't be aware that it would actually be an animal, you know, a pet of theirs. And that just, it although I'm aware of it, it just blows me away as well.
Yeah, I think as paranormal investigators, I think we're always focused on trying to figure out the human aspect of hauntings. And we really don't address the fact that some dogs and cats will come back and visit in spirit. So I wanted to backtrack for just a second, because the one thing that I make a distinction of is the entities. And I haven't heard a lot of paranormal investigators do this, but I decided, when I wrote my first book, I called it Ghosts and Spirits, because there is a true distinction, I think. So I've come to find out what happens after we die is the energy that is within our physical bodies, coupled with memories, personality, and knowledge. And we choose to stay here on Earth at a fixed location of our choosing. Has to be usually a place we're familiar with or where we died. And that's what I call a ghost.
Yes.
And we stay here for a variety of reasons, as you know. Mm-hmm. Conversely, the ones that cross over, I call spirits. I don't think they're interchangeable. It's about location. You know, I always say to realtors, you know, it's location, location, location. Here, ghosts are earthbound, and they can only interact with humans in that place that they choose. Spirits can interact with us anywhere, anytime, any place. If we're on vacation, if we're in a car, anywhere we visit, and that's a big difference to me. So I will say that 98, 99% of our pets cross over, because there's always somebody waiting for them on the other side. Mm-hmm. Either human or other pets on the other side. When our dog Dolly crossed over, I got visible proof of that, which really just choked me up.
Would you like to share that?
Sure, I can do that. So Dolly, in the last year of her life, Dolly was a real fighter, and she was the one that I doted on all the time. I adopted her from a Weimaraner rescue in Tennessee when she was 3 months old. She was part of a group of puppies that were abandoned by a breeder. So the Weimaraner rescue took her in, they nursed the puppies, and then they adopted them out. So because she came from Tennessee, I named her after my favorite entertainer, Dolly Parton. And Dolly and I had this bond where we knew what each other was thinking, no matter what. Didn't matter. We knew what we were going to do. We could do that. Anyway, in the last year of her life, she became incontinent with number one and number two. She had to wear a diaper all the time, so I was always changing her diaper several times a day. We let her sleep in the kitchen in the last 6 months of her life, because our other dog slept in the kitchen. He had back issues, and he passed 4 months before her. So every night I would sleep in the kitchen on the floor until she fell asleep. Oh. And then I would go to bed. On the night before, the night we knew that she was going to pass, she had a disc that slipped in her back, and it rendered her back legs useless within 24 hours. And we knew it. So that night at 8 o'clock, the night before, we called the vet to come to the house the next day. because she was miserable and she was telling me, Dad, I need to go. I'm tired. I can't fight anymore for you. So I slept on the floor with her and our other little dog in my arms, our dachshund who was bonded to her. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, she raised her head up and she stared at a door in the kitchen that goes to our laundry room. And I couldn't get her to get down. I couldn't put her head down. And I thought, she can barely pick her head up, but she is adamant to stare at this door. So I finally looked over there. There, visibly, I saw my mom and dad, who had passed, our friend Ed, who died in 1996, and our 3 dogs. And they were all waiting for her. And they were there about 5 seconds. And they disappeared. As soon as they disappeared, she put her head down. So I knew that they were waiting for her. The next day, my friend Ruth Larkin, who's the Beantown medium, she called me or texted me, and she said, Rob, Dolly has come through, and she said, I want you to know, she told me that your mom and dad and another guy was there, and 3 dogs. And I just thought, wow. Oh my gosh, that's exactly who I saw waiting for her.
Sorry to bring back all these feelings.
No, it's okay. I mean, I get very emotional. I mean, like we all do with our pets, but I bring this story up because I want everybody to know that, your loved ones in spirit, whether they're pets or people, are going to be waiting for your dog or cat or horse or bird or whatever pet you have on the other side to help them across. So they're not going to be alone, and they'll be okay.
That's beautiful to know that they're still going to be waiting for us on the other side. Are there any kind of animal that you're not able to communicate with, or you haven't yet?
Or I don't want to?
That too.
So yeah, there are several. First of all, I can only communicate with domesticated animals.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that they learn our language and our emotions and our routine and our behavior and so forth. So it's easier for me to get messages from them because they grow up basically as small children. And so I actually even communicated with rabbits, birds, gerbils, and even a rat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a fish.
And a fish. That would be interesting.
They're a very, very tiny scope of whatever they can tell you. They're really, it's an observance thing with them. They don't know language or anything. Yeah. Not like dogs and cats and so forth. One thing I kind of draw the line at is insects and reptiles, just because I'm uneasy with them in the physical. Mm-hmm. So, that preconceived feeling would probably interfere with my ability to communicate effectively with them. So,
understand.
But wild animals I can't communicate with because they just don't know they can't relate to us.
Yeah. They haven't been around us enough to be able to communicate in a way that we would actually understand.
Yes. Yeah. So, but yep, any domesticated animal it can make a message come through.
Have you ever been? Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just all about how they can relate to us, and that's the key of communications, especially from a medium's perspective. When I do readings as a medium, often the pets will actually show me images in my head, and they will also repeat words that they've heard, or they'll show me favorite places or favorite objects or something like that, or they'll tell me something. So in one case, I remember a dog that was very adamant about his favorite toy, and it was a yellow squeaky bone, and he said he does not want his brother dog to get that bone. And so when I wrote to the pet parent, of course, people write me and they don't tell me they have another pet. They don't tell me if they're married, if they're single, where they live. I don't know nothing about anything. And he wrote me back and he said, yeah, his favorite toy was a yellow squeaky toy, and he never wanted his brother dog, Charlie, to play with it. So we had to keep it from him. I thought, okay. And other pets will actually describe to me visibly in my head what the people on the other side look like. And they've described what they wear. I remember one pet described that I think it was a dog. He was with his grandfather, and he showed me multiple images of his grandfather, and in the images, the grandfather was always wearing a checkered shirt, like a lumberjack kind of shirt.
Okay, yeah.
So I said, okay. So I wrote that to the pet mom, and I said, this is weird because your dog is only showing me that your grandfather only wore the same checkered shirt all over and over again. And she wrote me back and she said, my grandfather only had checkered shirts in his closet. That's all he ever wore. So she knew that her dog was with her grandfather. And I just thought, that can't be right.
Never changes a shirt.
Yeah, so when I get these messages from the pets, I really have to trust what they're telling me. And it's hard as a medium, too, to not interject my own personal opinion in these messages, because sometimes I doubt myself. Like, no, he had to wear something more different than the same kinds of shirt every day. But nope, I need to listen to him.
Yep. That's amazing. I really wish I could communicate that way with my pets. I've tried, but for whatever reason, there's some kind of a blockage there. Maybe deep down inside, I don't want to, or they don't want to, or I don't know.
They'll find a way to get to you over time, and in different ways. I always tell people that if you really want a sign from your pet, the dreams are the easiest way that they can communicate. So ask before you go to bed if they will come into your dreams. And typically within 2 weeks, they'll try to do that. The only caveat to that is if you are in deep grief, that grief will act as a block. It will act as an emotional block. But sometimes our pets can be very clever. And what I mean by that is they'll go to somebody else that they know will give you the message. So in one instance, I got an email from a woman whose dog passed, and she said that she has not been able to dream of her dog. But she said, she said she was getting irritated because she wasn't getting any messages. And I said, well, your grief is too intense. And she said, but wait a minute, my husband has had several dreams of my dog. And she said, I argue with him over that all the time. And I said, well, first of all, your dog doesn't want you to argue with your husband. Secondly, your dog is coming through to your husband because he's kind of understood, he's accepted the loss. So the only way your dog can come through to you is by giving him the messages that your dog is okay and having him share it. So your dog does not want you to be arguing with your husband. So I thought that was kind of funny. Other things too is that pets will go to your friends or your neighbors. So when Dolly passed in October, a friend of mine in Massachusetts who lives 400 miles away and has never met Dolly, knew about Dolly because she would read my Facebook postings, and she sent me a text message the next day, and she was out on her normal neighborhood walk, and she said I hope that Dolly will continue to give you signs or will bring you signs. And she said, I was out in my neighborhood walk, and a Weimaraner that looked like Dolly ran out of the woods and stopped and sat and stared at me. And she said, oh my gosh, I've never seen this Weimaraner before. She lived there for many years. And she said, what are the chances in the woods and sit and stop and stare at me when I'm looking for a sign from Dolly to give to you? And that's exactly how it works. So that was Dolly that influenced that Weim to come out. And she said, even since October, she's never seen that Weimaraner again.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to work a little harder now to see if any of my pets want to communicate or if they've been trying. Must be frustrating for them too, that if they want to try and communicate with their parents and they're not open to it.
Yeah, that is a big issue. So, and I have found that actually in different couples that, you know, one would typically be open to it and the other one would not. There's a story in my Pets in the Afterlife 3 book about a dog named Little, and a woman had written me and she said, my boyfriend is really skeptical. He doesn't believe that pets can communicate from the afterlife. And I remember getting in touch with Little, and so Little showed me something that he really liked, and I need to remember here. So it was one of Little's favorite toys. So I remember writing that Little was showing me a little yellow toy, and it looked almost like a yellow duck. And that he wanted to let his mom know that was his very favorite toy. Now, out of all the toys that dogs have, it's really, you know, interesting that they can pick out anything they want. So when I wrote her that note, and I said, so Little is very much around you and wants you to know that how much, you know, he had a great life, and this is his favorite toy, and please put it aside. So after I sent that, she sent me a note back, and I'm going to show you this online here.
Yeah.
She sent a picture of Little's favorite toy, a little yellow duck.
Yeah.
And she wrote me back and she said, okay, my boyfriend believes you now. She said, how would you know?
Yeah.
Unless Little told you. And I said, well, that's exactly right. You know, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Every dog has their favorite toys. Mm-hmm. We have a Dachshund Chihuahua mix who carries around this furry bone-shaped toy. Mm-hmm. Our Dachshund carries around two things. One is a little lamb, and the other one is a Woodstock, yellow Woodstock from Snoopy.
Oh, yep.
So, and every dog has their own toy. And these dogs that I communicate with, and cats, will also share their favorite toy. So cats have shared their favorite toys. Mm-hmm. That really helps people understand that I am actually communicating with their pet.
It gives validation.
It does. And, you know, as a scientist, I'm always looking for validation.
Yep. Well, we're at the end already. It's that's amazing.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. I could talk to you for hours.
I feel like we just got started.
I know.
Okay.
Before we sign off, could you tell the listeners where they could find you and your book, any websites or anything like that? And I'll also add links in the show notes so they won't have to go searching. They'll just be easy for them to click on it.
Well, sure. Thank you. So everybody can find me on Amazon. I'm on Amazon platforms around the world. Amazon Canada, Amazon US, Amazon UK, Mexico, Japan, everywhere. And my website is easiest run to remember is petspirits.com.
Okay.
Because trying to pronounce my name and spell it is just not going to work. So petspirits.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I have a YouTube channel too, where I put up some interviews or I do some Facebook Live videos and so forth. I love questions. And I always try to answer questions every week on my blog. So it could be about people or pets, ghosts or spirits, doesn't matter. And I do limited readings. And all it really takes is one personal thing from a pet to let you know that they're talking to me and they're communicating. But above all, know that the love that we share with our pets lasts forever, and that they will be waiting for us on the other side. and they will help us. If you are in deep grief, please seek some counseling to help you through it, because our pets want nothing but the best for us. And by the way, our pets will come back and train new pets that we adopt. We didn't even get to touch on that in this interview, but we could talk about that another time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'd love to have you back and we can touch on some more things.
That sounds great.
Awesome. And what's the name of your YouTube channel?
The name of the
Just look for
YouTube
your
channel? I think it's just my name, Rob Gutro.
Okay.
But you can just search for Rob Gutro and you'll probably find it.
Okay. That sounds good. I'm definitely going to be checking that out.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you having me on. And again, my whole purpose and my mission is to share my gift and bring peace and comfort to everybody and let them know that our pets will always be communicating with us from the other side and taking care of us.
And I thank you for doing that, because it just helps so many grieving people get past it and to know that their pets are still going to be waiting for them on the other side. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again.
As do I. Just hang tight for a second and just chat for a couple of minutes. But thank you, everyone, for listening, and take care of yourselves and everyone around you.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.